A man is found delirious on the streets of Baltimore, wearing another man's clothes, muttering a name that no one recognizes. 4 days later, he is dead. His last words are a desperate plea. "Lord, help my poor soul." This isn't the opening of a grim novel. It's the real-life final chapter of one of literature's most enigmatic figures, Edgar Allan Poe. How did the master of mystery, the architect of modern horror, meet an end more bizarre than any of his own tales? Born in Boston in 1809 to traveling actors, Edgar's life was shadowed by tragedy from the start. Before he was 3, his father abandoned the family, and his mother succumbed to tuberculosis. The young orphan was taken in but never formally adopted by John Allan, a wealthy tobacco merchant in Richmond, Virginia. This fractured beginning forged a life of perpetual searching for a home, for love, for stability, a search that would haunt his every step. The Allans provided Edgar with a fine education, even taking him to England for 5 years. He excelled, a brilliant but moody student. Yet, his relationship with his foster father was a tempest. John Allan saw Edgar's literary ambitions as frivolous, a waste of a good mind that should be applied to business. When Poe enrolled at the University of Virginia, Allan provided him with barely enough money to survive, let alone cover his expenses. Desperate, Poe turned to gambling to make ends meet, but only plunged deeper into debt, a debt that would force him to leave the university after just 1 year. Feeling betrayed and with nowhere to go, Poe did something truly unexpected. He enlisted in the U.S. Army under a false name, Edgar A. Perry. It was a disciplined life, a far cry from the bohemian world of a poet, yet he thrived, rising to the rank of sergeant major. During this time, he self-published his first collection of poetry, Tamerlane and Other Poems. It sold almost no copies. It seemed his military career was more promising than his literary one. After 2 years, with a plea for help from his foster mother on her deathbed, he secured an early discharge and a place at West Point. But the specter of John Allan loomed large. His foster father, having remarried, now made it clear that Edgar would receive no inheritance. In a final act of rebellion, Poe deliberately got himself court-martialed and expelled from West Point. The break was final. He was 22 years old, disowned, and utterly alone, with only his pen to carve out a future. Poe moved to Baltimore, living in poverty with his aunt Maria Clem and her young daughter Virginia. It was here, amidst hardship, that his career finally began to flicker to life. He started publishing stories in magazines, developing a sharp critical voice as an editor, a voice so cutting he was nicknamed the Tomahawk Man. He was brilliant, but his confrontational style and struggles with alcohol made him a difficult employee, and he bounced from one editorial position to another. In 1836, in a move that scandalized society even then, the 27-year-old Poe married his cousin, Virginia Clem. She was not yet 14. Despite the controversy, their bond was one of deep, genuine affection. Virginia was his muse, his anchor in a turbulent life. For a brief period, things looked up. He was gaining recognition, and his life had a semblance of domestic peace. But tragedy was never far from Poe's door. One evening, while Virginia was singing at the piano, a single drop of blood appeared on her lip. It was the first sign of tuberculosis, the same disease that had claimed his mother. For the next 5 years, Poe lived in a constant state of dread, watching his beloved wife rally and then relapse, her life slowly, painfully ebbing away. This agonizing ordeal fueled his darkest, most powerful work. The torment of impending loss, the horror of decay, the madness of grief. It all bled onto the page. During this period, he wrote, The Mask of the Red Death, a chilling allegory for the inescapable plague that was consuming his own home. And then, in 1845, came the literary explosion that would make him a household name. A single poem, The Raven. Published in the New York Evening Mirror, it was an overnight sensation. The haunting rhythm, the melancholic despair, the unforgettable refrain of nevermore. It captivated the public imagination. Suddenly, Edgar Allan Poe was a celebrity. Children would flock to him on the street, flapping their arms and cawing like a raven, and he would play along. But fame did not bring fortune. He was paid a mere $9 for his masterpiece. 2 years later, the inevitable blow fell. Virginia died. Poe was shattered. He fell into a deep depression, his drinking spiraling out of control. His final 2 years were a blur of frantic activity and despair. He delivered lectures, pursued ill-fated romances, and tried desperately to secure funding for his own magazine. He was a man running from his own ghosts, a man whose brilliant mind was being consumed by sorrow and addiction. This brings us back to that Baltimore street in 1849. He was on his way home to New York after a lecture tour in Richmond. He was supposed to take a ferry to Baltimore and then a train, but he never made it to the train. A week-long gap in his timeline remains a complete mystery. Theories abound. Was he a victim of cooping, a violent form of election fraud where gangs would kidnap people, ply them with liquor, and force them to vote multiple times? Did he succumb to a pre-existing medical condition, like a brain tumor or rabies? Or did he simply finally drink himself to death? We will likely never know for certain. The hospital records, and even Poe's own medical certificate, have been lost to time. His death, like his life, is shrouded in mystery, a final, unsolvable riddle left by the master of the genre. What Poe left behind, however, is immortal. He didn't just write scary stories, he peered into the darkest corners of the human psyche. He pioneered the detective story with his character C. Auguste Dupin, laying the groundwork for Sherlock Holmes. He explored the frontiers of science fiction. He redefined the short story as an art form, insisting every word should contribute to a single unified effect. From the claustrophobic terror of The Cask of Amontillado to the psychological descent in The Telltale Heart, Poe's work continues to thrill and terrify us, a timeless echo of a life defined by genius and shadowed by sorrow. His end remains a mystery, but his legacy is as clear and as powerful as the tolling of a midnight bell. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey into the life of Edgar Allan Poe. If you found this story as fascinating as we do, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most compelling figures. We'll see you in the next one.